Hey folks, MasakoX here. We head back to the tale of the legendary Magic Potato and his quest to become something more than he was in the original story. Babidi and Dabura were quite the departure from your typical Dragon Ball villain of the time. They were based around magic and the dark arts, but their time in the series was very much limited. However, in this version of events, we've decided to show mercy and spare Babidi from certain doom at the hands of Buu, and instead work his way to the top of the trust totem with Piccolo at his side, watching him constantly to see how he might act. If he had become less evil, or good in some respects, Babidi might have proven useful. But as you might remember, it came at a cost of his very unique selling point, which could lead to other rumblings ahead of us. In the last part, Babidi had just about survived the attack of Frieza of planet Earth and had continued his research into regaining his powers through different means to what he was given. The only way he could do magic these days was to remember spells from a book, incantations from other scrolls, using them on the battlefield temporarily, but he would be greatly drained of this and would have to recharge. He couldn't just use these willy-nilly. He's a charm battery, you could say. This did lead to some pluses, in that Dende was starting to take the vegetable quite seriously, viewing him more and more as someone of great intellect and potential, a teacher. And as a result, the pair of them started to learn from one another, making use of the Lookout's wide and expansive range of reading material, literature, that most of the previous Guardians had seemingly barely utilised. This all went rather swimmingly, until, Goku came along, throwing a spanner in the works as he often does. Babidi found this to be extremely disruptive because he couldn't read anymore, but at the same time intriguing. After all, it's not every day that you get to go to another universe from back in the day. He goes with Bulma to Zuno and seeks advice on the Super Dragon Balls, and thanks to his shouting, he spares the engineer the indignation of having to kiss Zuno, and they get the information they need anyway. But Super Dragon Balls, even a slightly redeemed Spud could be tempted to steal them. The day of the cross-universal tournament had finally come, and while Babidi wasn't usually the one to await such events with any anticipation, this time it was slightly different. Instead of him simply watching from the sidelines like the other members of his current squad were doing, he had something else in mind. As he couldn't quite get the hold of the Super Dragon Balls prior to the contest, he, like everyone else, got the first sight of them on the Nameless Planet. Or around the Nameless Planet. These things were massive. These weren't going to be your typical clutch that you could hide away in a bag or some kind of temporal pocket for safekeeping. This was going to require some very high-level arcane stuff to pull off. Alright, seemed like snatching them wasn't going to be easy then. Granted, he had anticipated such an event occurring, as Zuno had mentioned something about them being, well, fairly sizable compared to other examples of Dragon Balls scattered around the universe, and were apparently the work of a god rather than a typical Namekian. Something about the name Zalama or something? Babidi didn't know if he should tease Piccolo about this or show genuine interest in this random little factoid, as not many species could possibly be able to perform such a feat. So in order to scratch his itch, he decided to go with both anyway. But his warden was more focused on the fights in the tournament instead of appeasing Babidi's wicked sense of humour. Besides, Piccolo had become rather numb to these jibes over the years anyway. They mattered not all that much. Babidi also checked out the Universe 6 mooks, thanks to him being quite diminutive and anonymous by comparison. The Metal Man over there didn't look all that tough, and Babidi had seen some of them on his travels in Universe 7, and examined them a little bit, explaining about them to the team, including that little information about their rather thin metallic skin. They were quite emotional. That could be handy should he prove difficult.
They're in our universe too. Not great in numbers nowadays, but I don't think he can hold a candle to that freezer-looking individual there.
Everyone looked to where Babidi was pointing and gazed upon Frost, surprised to see a blue Frieza. But the real weird thing about him was that they couldn't spot any malice on his face or his demeanour. Babidi held a particularly long, deep stare at this fellow. He seemed friendly enough, but the very fact that he seemed friendly enough was at odds with what Frieza clan members often exhibited. Piccolo claimed not to feel an evil presence from him too, but Babidi, he wasn't so sure. Yes, Piccolo was usually a good judge of character, but this time Babidi felt he was off by a fair amount.
Look out for that one, will you?
The wizard whispered to the Namekian. What? Are you judging the book by its cover again? Babidi looked again at Frost.
No, I wouldn't waste your time if it weren't important. It's just, a faker can always spot another faker. Keep an eye on him.
Babidi was being helpful. Again, not a frequent occurrence, so it might be serious. Now, the next part of the tournament came about, and it was quite a welcome joy for Babidi to witness, as they had to take the written exam in order to even compete. Seeing Buu and Goku struggling over writing stuff and having to think, it filled him with the utmost of joys. He even asked the angels if he could take the test, just for fun. They agreed to this, but just in case he was cheating, they blocked his telepathic abilities with the rest of the team. He'd have to do it on his own. Oh well, okay, it was worth a try, Babidi thought, but he took the test anyway because it seemed fun. He got the satisfaction though of getting over 80% on the quiz, one of the highest in the group in fact. And of course, Buu falls asleep. Well, it's not like anyone in this team could be even remotely prepared for Goku or Vegeta, right? Losing one at this stage, oh, it couldn't matter all that much, yeah? The first fight was Goku versus Butamo, which had awakened some very vivid memories from the times when he first saw the Saiyans fighting against Babidi's former pink goon. Although this yellow bear thing seemed to be even better at taking damage than even the mighty Majin himself, Babidi still knew that Goku was toying with him. He hadn't even transformed, nor looked close to be doing so. After some time spent with those Saiyans, the wizard began to understand how they worked, especially Goku. He would often start out slow, then show off maddeningly. And then the battle would end hilariously, with Beerus' twin getting rather angry and accusing Goku point blank of cheating. And as everyone started to bicker at the fatter of the cats in defense of the Saiyan, Babidi joined in, discovering that the thing that would normally cause unnatural fear against a god of destruction of his own universe did not occur with this sibling. Right now, Champa was not in the least bit scary. In fact, he looked positively ridiculous. So, this was most fascinating. It seemed that Babidi, his father, had placed that safekeeping mechanism on Beerus solely. It didn't work on any other destroyer. Good to know. So it was possible that his creator had never left Universe 7. Good. If he chose to flee to another universe, Babidi, he could live without any of those brutes breathing down his neck, and he could actually escape. He wouldn't be powerless to resist anymore. This gave him a notable sense of satisfaction to know that this was a thing, as he was able to achieve something that even his grand predecessor was unable to do. Break free. But that was small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. But for now, it was a decent dose of copium for him to consume after all the things that he had been through. The next fight was between Frost and Son Goku, which once again started with that unbearably friendly banter. Goku always did that. It made Babidi furious, as it proved nothing other than it simply wasted time. His and Vegeta's eyes then met in that situation, nodding in agreement, for once, seeing that for the first time ever, that they were genuinely sharing some sort of consensus, that Goku was a dolt. Even if that sentiment was born out of frustration, there was more understanding between the wizard and the Z fighters than ever before, making him feel even more included. After a lot of teasing from Goku and form changing from the latter, Frost finally transformed into what seemed to be his final form. Goku then transformed only to his Super Saiyan state, but was able to dominate the Ice thing anyway. That is, up until a certain point, when the Saiyans suddenly started to feel a little dizzy, out of nowhere. Babidi was quite surprised by this. Had the Saiyan underestimated their opponent? What a complete fool if that were true. Or was he? Was this twist unavoidable? The wizard closed his bulbous eyes, concentrating intently. He was trying to remember details from the fight. A simple focusing spell would do the trick. He was watching the scene back, of Goku and Frost in close quarters, thinking deeply for a moment. What was going on? Was there any kind of odd movements? And that was when he saw... Ooh, that blasted creature. Now, he could announce this flagrant breach of the rules here and now, but no. Piccolo was next. It would be beneficial for him to get into the Namekian's good books by telling him discreetly. He sent Piccolo a telepathic message.
Wait! Before you get stuck in like you often do, Frost is cheating. He has hidden poison needles in his forearms. Don't get hit by them. Defeat and expose him, so he might get Goku back in the game.
Piccolo looked back at the stands and nodded, smiling at the wizard. That was quite a bit of teamwork there. And so, the fight started. And thanks to the Mage's advice, Piccolo was indeed more cautious going into it, using multiform and the special beam cannons, yet also keeping an eye on his opponent's forearms. As Frost started to panic, because he couldn't get close, Piccolo grabbed him by said arms. Why so nervous? What are you trying to pull? He pulled Frost upwards and showed everyone his underhanded tactics to everyone. The pirate was furious, trying to silence Piccolo, but the Namekian was able to knock him out with a headbutt. Pathetic, Piccolo muttered. Frost was then hurled out of the ring, and Goku was allowed to return thanks to Universe 6's cheating, much to Champa's fury. But Piccolo doesn't give up, he stays in. And Babidi caught himself cheering loudly for Big Green. The rest of the tournament then went on to be quite exciting. Although the fight between the Namekian and Vegeta was noteworthy, Piccolo just couldn't quite manage to push him out of the ring with telekinesis, but he still gave a rather interesting show, but he eventually did fall out of the ring. At least he hadn't given up. Babidi reminded Vegeta when he went in that a lot of the Metalmen were quite sensitive to insults, reminding him again of what he said earlier, just in case the prince wasn't listening. And this did greatly help the prince out against the metallic opponent from the off. The potato-headed wizard got so much out of watching this tournament, much more so than he would ever have expected. In fact, he had completely forgotten about the Super Dragon Balls. He was that enthralled. Vegeta defeated both the Metal Man and the young Saiyan of Universe 6, whom he had taught how to transform. Huh, not so different from Goku after all, are we? The last opponent was this Hit guy, and he was, to Babidi's shock, able to outclass Vegeta and even Goku. Apparently, he was some kind of legendary mercenary, and he had a gift that kept on giving, this being able to mess with time itself. Vegeta didn't seem like a challenge for him, and the fight with Goku was just as nerve-wracking. Babidi yelling loudly with the others. It was so exciting to see the Saiyan figure out a workaround against Hit's technique, seeing Goku in his element, a feat that seemed to impress even the assassin himself. But wait, they had one more fighter to go up against, the one brought by Beerus, the Wagashian. Babidi didn't think much of him, and when he walked out into the ring, Champa started to yell at Hit to finish the fight quickly. He noticed how stressed Beerus was and wanted to capitalize on it. Oh, he knew what was happening. But before Babidi could talk, Hit threw himself out of the arena. The assassin had enjoyed his fight with Goku and had gotten angry at his god of destruction. Babidi then turned to Beerus, and Beerus turned back at him. There were no words, but the sight easily said, "I know that you know, but if you tell anyone, I will destroy you." Babidi gulped loudly and pretended that he wasn't aware of the details of that whole ordeal. They won. Best accepted. Like I said, Babidi had forgotten about the Super Dragon Balls, but now he had his mind jogged when they were brought up again. Yes, he could finally attempt to... "Lord Zeno has arrived at the tournament," said Whis. Babidi then looked to the God of Destructions and the Elder Kai, who were completely mortified.
Who is this Zeno?"
said Goku ignorantly. Whis smiled at him and whispered something in his ear. Of course, Son Goku would attempt to befriend this being, he always does, much to everyone's fear. Babidi even screeched a little bit, which attracted Zeno's attention.
"Oh, hello! Are you Son Goku's friend?" "Yes, but my name is Babidi."
"Babidi's a wizard, Zenny. He can do tricks."
"Shut up, Goku, shut up!" "Oh, tricks? Can you show me?" Sure, I mean, of course, sure. Highness.
And so Babidi desperately tried to cast some basic fireworks spells, which left the little being, thankfully, in awe. Was this truly the Omni King? The king of everything, Babidi thought? Or was he simply toying with him, messing with him?
One day I want you to do that again at my home. You'll show more to me.
Beerus slapped Babidi on the back. Almighty Zeno, Babidi will be very glad to show you some more of his magical tricks, right, Babidi?
Of course.
As the Omni King left, Babidi was even more distressed than before. He wasn't some kind of cheap illusionist. He doesn't know anything about cheap tricks with rabbits and hats and all that. But, after a moment, he realized something. This kid was the king of everything. He really was. Yes. If he managed to amuse him so easily, and was able to be in good favor with him because of it, the most powerful being in reality as a friend, he could basically have anything he ever wanted handed to him, without question. He looked to his hands. Maybe he had just found his solution. Who needs the Super Dragon Balls? You got the king of everything in your good books. Yes, Babidi. I bet you hadn't thought about that. Babidi started to cackle to himself, then discovered that everyone was looking at him.
Oh, I'm just, happy that the Omni King liked my magic tricks.
Piccolo sighed deeply. Oh, let's go home. And as such, the Universe 6 tournament ended. Still though, Babidi remained deeply unaware that someone very similar to him was also exploring his options, seeking forbidden knowledge around the galaxy. The patroller had told him enough to get started that one. But it wouldn't be easy. He would need a crew that could help him free this entity. And maybe then he would be able to set it free and learn the secrets that even Father was unable to explore. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. If you like the story, check out this one, where a magical twist saw Chi-Chi become far more than she ever was, and in fact, far more bearable. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!